Welcome to the Building Business Relationship Show. I'm Matt Stone, and before we officially launch, we're exploring what matters most when it comes to relationships in business. These early episodes are about testing ideas, learning from guests, and hearing what you think belongs in the conversation. So please listen in, share your thoughts, and help shape what this show becomes. Now, recently, I got a chance to meet up with Dr. Tasha Eurich, the world's foremost expert on self-awareness. And in this short conversation that you're about to watch or listen to, Tasha and I cover a lot of ground. She talks about the connection between relationships and self-awareness, what's really going on when we are reactive, and what excites her most about the launch of the Building Business Relationships show. So thanks for tuning in. Please do like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. I am so excited to be here with my dear friend and the world's #1 guru on self-awareness, author of 3 books, Bankable Leadership, Insight, and her latest book, Shatterproof, which is amazing, by the way. And Tasha Eurich has agreed to have a quick chat with me about the upcoming Building Business Relationship show.
Here I am.
Yay! We even have a sunny day to do it. Also, please admire my pink microphone, which is
That's on loan from me.
Extra accent for the show. So, yeah, I wanted to ask Tasha a few questions about it too and get her perspective. So, the show is going to be rooted in relationships and building great enterprises, entrepreneurial enterprises powered by great relationships. So, have you had a business relationship that's had a big impact on your life?
I am so lucky to have more to choose from to answer this question than I possibly know what to do with. I remember a mentor of mine once said that most people can trace their success to, 2 or 3 people opening one door. And if we use that criteria, probably the person that's had the biggest impact professionally in terms of not just my success, but who I am as a person, is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who is the #1 executive coach in the world, the #1 leadership thinker in the world. He's written several books that have sold millions of copies. The big one is What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Love that.
Classic for any leader.
Yep.
And Marshall and I met maybe 12 years ago now. It was through a mutual friend of ours who was also my mentor, who told me, it's time for you to meet Marshall. And ever since then, he has not just opened doors for me professionally, but he's just been a confidant, and he now proudly calls himself my honorary dad. And I think that just is a testament to, these aren't just business relationships, are they? They transform our lives in ways that usually we don't even anticipate.
Actually, it's one relationship leading to another one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, do you remember what precipitated that moment of you were ready? What was the seed of that?
I wish that I could tell you. What was happening at the time was I was getting ready to publish my first book, Bankable Leadership, in 2013. And the first conversation Marshall and I ever had, I will never forget it, because it happened at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
Wow.
The only time he had available. And it sort of had the drama of a good dramatic movie or TV show, where he was at some points yelling at me, but in the most loving way of you need to get your head out of your ass and think about this. I was yes I do. And then we kind of connected. We shared a sense of humor, so we were laughing. But it's never boring with a good mentor, right? A good mentor is not just going to sit there politely and quietly and say, that's all very nice. They're going to pressure test what you're saying.
You mean ChatGPT is not a good mentor? Everything you write in it, it says, what a great idea.
Matt, this is the best idea I've ever heard.
Wonderful. It is nice and assuring, but sometimes not reassuring in that way, right? For the self-awareness.
Because nobody that would tell you that about the idea you just shared.
They would never say that, no. But you can always go to ChatGPT to feel better in the moment, I suppose. But Marshall's not that. Marshall's much more than that for you. Do you remember those first conversations, how it kind of helped you? What did it teach you about relationships and your own, venture, your passion? You had a vision then. You wrote a book, but as you were getting to know Marshall, what were some of the connections you were making about the potential of this relationship to really change your life?
I would say This is maybe a little bit less relationship focused, a little bit more focused on sort of my journey. But, when I first came to Marshall, and still to this day, I have a hard time with self-promotion, right? And when you're an author and when you're a speaker, you sort of have to find a way to make peace with that. And, he said a couple of things. He said, the first thing is your personal comfort more important than the positive impact that you want to make on, all of the leaders and all of the companies and all of the people that you're trying to influence? And I said, no. So that was a big insight. And the second thing he told me was get your ego out of this, right? Self-promotion is sort of the wrong way to think about it. You should really be thinking about it in terms of getting your message out. So he gave me a Peter Drucker quote, which I do think is focused on relationships also. The purpose of life is not to prove how right you are or how smart you are. It's to make a positive difference. And as long as we're doing that, we can start shouting it from the rooftops. Because if we, it's like your show, that what you are doing is going to make a positive impact. It becomes so much easier to not just promote it, but to connect to other people.
This point is so critical because we all have an ego and it's useful to us when we have to perform, for example. But I think what I found with you and with other people is the good, solid relationships you have will tell you the truth about, hey, that's a good idea, but it's not done yet, or you're not ready yet, or have you thought about this? Just keeping you on track and rooted in that legitimate purpose, because if you rob the world of what your gift is, that's the real loss. Right. That's what I heard in your story.
Yeah, and that's what I think Marshall is so good at zeroing in on what people's gifts are. And it's you sort of think about the sum total impact he's had by doing that. And this man, I don't know how he can maintain the number of relationships he maintains, but at the end of every call, he says, "What can I do to help you live a little bit better of a life?" Yeah. And I know he's asking that question to everybody else that is important to him.
I remember I've met him a couple times, partially because of you, but one of the times I met him at this event, and he gave out his phone number for anyone to go on a walk with him.
That's a big thing, walks.
Yeah, walks. Because we were in Nashville, so what did that relationship that was so pivotal for you, what did it teach you about relationships in general? And then let me ask a two-part question, which is a little bit complex, I suppose, but not for you.
No, give me 2 parts, Matt Stone.
Because what did it teach you, but also as much of the self-awareness research that you've done and the teaching that you do on self-awareness and coaching, connect relationships to self-awareness. What is the nexus of those two, and how do you manage your relationships in a way that nurtures good self-awareness?
So I sort of have 2 angles on this. One is the causal impact between becoming more self-aware and having better relationships, right? There's tons of data showing that people who know who they are and how other people see them have everything from deeper friendships to longer lasting marriages to better relationships with their kids, and their coworkers. If you're a leader, you're more influential and motivational and trusted. So that's sort of one angle. So from self-awareness to relationships, but I also can draw the causality the other way, which is from relationships to self-awareness. If and only if those relationships contain what I call loving critics, which is essentially in our 12 plus years of researching self-awareness, what we found is the most highly self-aware people don't surround themselves with human chat GPTs. They surround themselves with what we termed loving critics. So for someone to be a loving critic, they first have to support you. No frenemies need apply. But the second thing, which is just as important and in my opinion pretty rare, is they have to have a track record of telling you the truth. They have to have a track record of being like, no, I don't like your new haircut. And I'm going to tell you because no one else is telling you, and you're walking around with bangs, and why did you get, whatever. Hopefully it's a little bit more helpful than that. That seems kind of shallow in terms of feedback, but you know what I mean, right?
My bangs are awful.
Your bangs, yeah,
terrible.
Me too.
Yeah.
Someone talked me out of them today. You talked me out of bangs. But I think that's ultimately how relationships can increase our self-awareness, and then it's like this one beautiful circle.
Virtuous cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. One feeds the other.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so listen, there's all these topics on communication and leadership. I mean, leadership is so everywhere, but we don't necessarily know what it means in this context unless you get down into the details. And so I'm wondering, what's the topic around relationships that we're not talking about that we should be?
So as an author, every time I've written a book, have written the book that I needed at the time. And my most recent book talks about how, this is just empirically and objectively, we are living in a world that is getting more and more chaotic, more and more disruptive, more and more stressful, and people are increasingly not okay. I think about the clients that I'm coaching. So many of them are coming to me with problems that weren't the same as they were, 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's things that I identify with. They're saying things like, the level of stress that I'm facing is so high that there are times when I just lose it, right? So the topic that we're not talking about when it comes to relationships, in my opinion, enough, is reactivity. Is when you're stressed, how easy it is to allow yourself to go with your first response to a situation. And I've been under a ton of stress lately, just candidly, we all have, right? And there have been several times in the last couple of months where I have gotten in my own way in such profound, to such a profound extent, by not pausing between the reaction I have initially and how do I want to show up in this relationship and what is it that I want to do instead? The good news for me and for anyone else maybe who is dealing with this is I'm seeing my clients make huge steps forward, and they're doing that by, ironically, reading Shatterproof and using the tools from it to understand their triggers and to understand all of the things that are setting them off, right? That's the kind of thing that we have to understand in order to pick our response.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you can observe yourself, you can't observe yourself if you don't pause.
No.
So you can take a breath and observe yourself and say, what is this reaction that I'm having signaling to me really? The power of the pause is that I can sometimes even get clarity that the emotional trigger I'm having, the reaction I'm having, may not be, my first instinct about it may not be accurate. For example, if I feel really rageful in a moment, let's say you're driving, what you're actually doing when you do road rage is that you were afraid of something. You were afraid of getting hit, for example. Am I on the right track?
Yes. I talk about a 4-step process in Shatterproof, but just to kind of really distill it to its essence, when we are reactive, it's usually because one of our 3 fundamental human needs is being frustrated. So the first is confidence. We want to feel like we're doing well and we're getting better and we're growing. The second is choice. It's not just having agency, it's being able to live our lives with authenticity, to be who we are. And the third is connection. And that is everything from feeling like we belong, talking to people at the grocery store, to having mutually supportive relationships.
Yeah.
And that's been helpful for me personally. If I'm feeling like I'm being neglected in a relationship or something, I say okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a human being who's, for whatever reason, whose need for connection is being frustrated. So of course I'm upset about this. And I think there's sort of this weird paradox of, in understanding why we might be so upset, we start to get a little bit more ability to pause and to choose something different. But it really comes back to those 3 needs.
Yeah, it's so good. And that is one of the really most, I think, useful things. There's so many useful things in Shatterproof, but those 3 C's, just spot on, absolutely spot on. And the other thing from Insight, the loving critic, that language, I have to say I've stolen that many times.
Cool.
I mean, I do give you credit, but I just think that phrase captures exactly the kind of person that you want. And we don't usually talk about loving people in business, and yet that's exactly who you want on your team to be giving you feedback.
I and most of my mentors believe that it's all about love in every part of our lives.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are you doing?
That's exactly
right. What are you doing,
what's the point? Yeah, exactly. Okay, listen. This is a short pre-launch video, so I just have one more question to ask you, and that is, I've told you even some secrets about the show that I'm not even going to talk about now. But we are planning a show. This is going to come out in 2026, and we're planning a really entertaining show about building great enterprises, about entrepreneurship, about visionaries, and about relationships, but it's going to be really entertaining. So now that you know what I've told you behind the scenes, let's tease the audience a little bit. What are you excited about with the launch of this show in 2026?
So I am lucky enough to have heard a lot about this. And the observation I have is this show is unlike any show that I've seen or heard before. And ultimately, the question is like, for what purpose? For what purpose? And I, as an entrepreneur, as a 5th generation entrepreneur, I hope I have some credibility on which to base my opinion. I know this is going to help so many of my peers and my colleagues, people who are stressed out strivers, who are trying to do big things in the world and build enterprises and companies. And I think it's going to be a place of community, a place of learning, and a place of inspiration.
Wow. Thank you so much for taking the time. And it's great to see you in person.
Always
great to see you. So thank you, Tasha. You've been a great gift to the audience. Mwah. All right. Thanks for listening to the Building Business Relationships show. This pre-launch phase is all about discovery. So if something sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, ideas, or guest suggestions, and help us shape the conversations that come. And of course, subscribe so you'll be the first to know when we officially launch and when new content drops. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.